welcome to Ep.1 of the Perfect Specimen show, podcast, whatever we decide to call it.
Yeah.
Perfect Specimen. I'm Derek. This is Josh. And maybe explain how this started, where we kind of came, Perfect Specimen idea from.
Yeah, well, it probably takes us back 7 years or so. We're both firefighters here at a fire department in Alberta. And when we met each other, you know, I got on. You'd been on for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I still am, into the kind of the functional fitness space, the CrossFit space, the training
big CrossFit
space,
heads,
right? Yeah. And it was cool to have another guy on the department that was doing the same sort of training. And so I think naturally we gravitated towards each other. We started to talk, fitness and kind of that related content. And that I think was the origin of how we kind of started our fitness journey together. But the Perfect Specimen, like where that came from was through us challenging each other through fitness challenges, essentially. I think we started off with the Opens, I think were the first thing, right?
Yeah, so if you don't know, the CrossFit Open is like a 5-week competition, you call it, I guess. It's just like every week they release different workout, and you just battle it out and see who ends up on the top of the leaderboard.
And at that time it was 5 weeks.
Yeah.
5
weeks, Now it's 3, I think, right?
Now it's 3.
Yeah. So I don't miss it.
Yeah, the 5.
We did it for how many years though? That was
a few years. Yeah.
Because if we look, we kept track because we've done mostly the Open for like competing against each other, but there was a triathlon in there as well. So we've done probably, I think, like 3 Opens. I think I maybe took 1. You've taken 2. Yeah. And then I took the triathlon, which was, I think, a shock to both of us. It kind of catered to me for the bike.
I think the bike was a big game changer.
Oh,
you were putting some major power up and down on that thing. And we were sitting in that room like, I'm looking at your pace and I'm like, there's no way I can put that power down. It was fun. It was a good experience. Yeah. It was fun to train the swimming up a little bit. Swimming's one of those things where it comes back, but if you don't train it, you can get a little panicky in the water, I find, when you're breathing heavy if you don't spend a lot of time in the pool.
I remember this was like before we were doing this and I was training up to it. It was at a period where like we were doing the intermittent fasting, so fasting in the morning, and like doing normal cardio was fine, doing like even a workout was fine. I tried to intermittent fast a swim. Yeah. I almost died.
Yeah.
I was like lightheaded after like a couple like lanes or whatever you call it, laps. And I was just like, I'm dying here. I can't handle this. And it's such a different stimulus that it was.
Well, people say that swimming consumes a ton of calories, and I don't like. Remember that old video that was circulating that was talking about how much Michael Phelps ate in a day? Yeah. And they went through, and it was obscene. Like, it was thousands and I think it's close to like 10,000 calories a day when
the amount of eggs was like insane. It was like bodybuilder-esque,
Yeah. But he's lean. He's super lean. Yeah. He's not like this big bodybuilder guy, but I think swimming is just this constant resistance. There's something to that. Maybe it's being in the water. Something related to that sport seems to burn a ton of calories.
And I think there's like a weird threshold too. Like I think for us, it burns like an immense amount of calories because we're just average, right? Like
very inefficient.
So inefficient, just plowing through the water. Like I know I'm just like a snow plow in the water. It's terrible. But and I think at that high level, like Jen, she used to compete at my wife used to compete at a high level, and she has to go a lot further to get like the same stimulus out of it, right? Like she has to go for a ways like an hour, and then it's the same thing. Whereas I'm just like dying after 20 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's that efficiency for sure. Yeah. They look. There was a video I saw, I think maybe like a week ago or something, and it was showing a competitive swimmer next to just an average person. It might have been Phelps or someone, and you look at them side by side in a pool, and they look like they're different species of people with how they're moving through the water and almost with no effort. Like they could be just relaxed and they're just gliding. It's
just effortless.
It's a neat sport, but I guess just go full circle. So that was it was good to get trained up on the swimming aspect of that. I remember my calves, I think I've mentioned to you before, were blown up because I tried these Barefoot shoes, and that was kind of my first time running with those. And I'm like, oh, it'll be okay. I'll take them out. And my calves were wrecked. So advice to anyone is, if you get Barefoot shoes, ease into the running, because you won't be able to walk.
Don't just go into a sprint marathon or sprint triathlon.
No, it was not good at all.
You were in Barefoot shoes. You went to New York a little while ago, right? And you wore Barefoot shoes through there.
I did.
And just
I had to
you?
buy new shoes in New York because I couldn't walk. Like, I sound super lame, the fact that I can't do, but we were walking 35 kilometers a day, or 35,000 steps a day. Sorry, not kilometers, 35,000 steps a day. And my feet were not holding up to that. And I had to buy new shoes. Yeah, the bottom of my feet were just messed up. And I kind of blame. Okay, so I think it was day 3. My feet were starting to get blown up, and I'm feeling it really start to get painful. And we see this little massage parlor, right? And we're in Chinatown in New York City, and they say that they're doing foot massages. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's get a foot massage, like right now. So my wife and I, Chum, and we go down to this little, massage parlor downstairs, and we're like, hey, we'd like to get some foot massages, and we strip our bags off. And there are these 2 ladies that walk out, and they're like ready to work. Like I'm telling you, they got some arms on them. Yeah. I'm like, this is going to be a legit foot massage. But my feet are like almost inflamed. Yeah. I can feel like the ligaments and the tendons are inflamed. Well, they get going, and it is painful. They are just getting in there,
stretching them out.
I think that was too much for my feet.
Probably.
And it just
it's like I was doing BJJ with Rob the other day, and he's like, I just came from a massage, so this probably isn't the best idea. It's like, let me just lengthen everything and relax everything, and then just annihilate it with a huge walk. Like,
you gotta be careful. That stuff. It was worse. My feet were worse after that, just for the record.
I can imagine.
So awesome. Then we had eventually a trophy, and I think you found it from somewhere, and it's you ordered it online, and that was the Perfect Specimen trophy. And so we began to put the trophy up as up for stakes, essentially, with our challenges. So
and we compete for that, and it was it was a fun carrot on a stick, right, to chase and be like, ooh, I'm the champion, rub it in for a while, and we haven't done a challenge in a while, so we'll have to think of one to do.
Yeah, we have to think of one. Yeah,
maybe the next Open, or who knows. I don't really want to do the Open.
Yeah, it's I've done it every year for a long time, and I always, as I get closer to it, I start to think about reasons why not to do it. All these excuses keep coming up, and I shouldn't do it because of this and that, and I'm nursing this, and one of the best ways, like a good mentor of mine, he's the owner of a gym here in Calgary, Brett Marshall. He gave me some advice back in the day, and he says the Open, when you're doing the CrossFit Open, it's a measure of where you are at that point in your life. And so it's not necessarily, you don't need to be in peak physical form to do it. It's just capturing at this year, at this time, where were you in life in terms of your fitness journey? And if you do that enough times, you can begin to see if what you're doing is making you more fit over time, right? You have 365 days between these Opens, and maybe you were injured at this one, but you'll begin to see over 5 years, over 3, what are you doing? Where are you moving? If you are injured and you're injured at the next one and the next one, okay, well, that still is a pattern. So when you begin to kind of think about it in that regard, you kind of take stress off of yourself, because all it is a snippet into where were you? Yeah,
it's like we do the constant physicals at work, and that's like a metric, right, to base off your fitness, right? And this is the same thing, right? Like, it's that long-term metric of how am I, how fit am I, and like where am I at, right? And it's it's also kind of a wake up call at some points. Cause I remember like I bounce around programs, as you know, like quite a bit. Like I go a couple months of bodybuilding, a month of Olympic lifting.
Yeah, totally. You're the ultimate program bouncer.
But it's like, it's nice because it's that constant up and down of like different stuff, right? Like, oh, my strength peaks, my cardio tanks, and then I'll like go on a running thing, and like my cardio goes up, and my strength stays pretty similar. But then like you get an injury, and you get this, and like it's just like constant fluctuations, right?
Yeah. With all testing, there's a kind of an ego piece that tends to creep in. You know, we just did testing at the fire hall, and you know, one of the pieces there was a 4K bike.
Yeah.
And I remember during that bike, it was quite challenging. But there's this ego component to it where you want to, you know, maybe give it 70% because you're like, oh, I did this yesterday and that yesterday. Maybe I'll just do 70%. And you begin to have anxiety around testing in general due to this ego component.
Yeah, like what if I don't perform? It's easier, I think, in the open because it's the different challenges. Like there's still, I think, is a pattern, and it's like testing your general fitness, and it does a good job of capturing that. But like a 4K bike's a 4K bike. Like if you're bad for it, then like either you didn't try, you're injured, or you just worse, right? Like
totally.
You know, and it's tough. It's tough to like. I remember going into that, I was nervous and thinking like, what if this person does better than me? You know?
You're at a fire hall, so you know it's going to be that competition.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
People just annihilated themselves, and like I pushed pretty hard through that, and it was like, man, that sucked.
Yeah, it is. It's funny at the fire hall because you have these annual physicals, right? And they are confidential, but they don't stay confidential because it's a fire hall and people tell each other what they did. What'd you get? How many pull-ups did you do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So it always turns into a competition.
Which is fun. It kind of pushes you, but it's, I don't know, sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yes. There's it's a double-edged sword. Competition in general, I think, is a very good thing. I think it's probably something that pushes people forward more than anything else. Yeah. But it can hold you back if you stop doing things because you're too competitive and you're too scared to be vulnerable through competition. Yeah. It's the being scared to be vulnerable that holds people back, I think.
Yeah, being scared to lose, right? And just like, nope, not competing, not doing this.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah. I know I battle with that with stuff as well. And it's like, you just got to do it, right? Like you just got to force yourself into it.
Be uncomfortable.
Tough. Yeah. Be okay being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what program are you doing right now?
Marcus Philly.
Yeah, so that's the functional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And so you kind of went full circle there. You went like hardcore CrossFit, like back in it, drinking the Kool-Aid, just guzzling it.
Totally. I mean, I was training for Wadapalooza.
Yeah.
And I think there's kind of two CrossFit branches. There's CrossFit for your general health, which is, you know, you're probably doing a class WOD every day. You're taking rest days, you're monitoring your intensity levels, and you're viewing, you know, CrossFit as a methodology across time. And that is, you know, quite a healthy way to train. But then there's CrossFit for competition, where if all aspects of your life aren't dialed in, I think it's not healthy for your body. If you don't, you know, we're firefighters, we're not sleeping, you know, as we should be for training really hard. The mobility and all the aspects that are conducive to being a high level athlete need to be in place if you're going to train like a high level athlete. Because if you start training that way without these support systems, you're going to break something. Something's going to give. And it took me months to recover from that training. And at the time, I thought I was fine. And then all of a sudden, when it was over, you realize you're not fine.
Yeah, you've just been pushing through these little nagging injuries, right? Yeah. And it's just compounding.
That's where I kind of found Marcus Philly's programming, because he went through the same sort of journey at a higher level, right? I mean, he was a CrossFit Games athlete. He'd been pushing for years. And then sort of branded the what do you call it? Functional bodybuilding, right? Yeah. And kind of taken both aspects, finding a hybrid, and he found a lot of success with it. And, you know, I wanted to give it a go. And I think that fitness has sort of been on this pendulum in the functional world. Mm-hmm. And I think there was a period of time when CrossFit came on the scene where the pendulum swung all the way to this kind of functional side. So you saw isolation movements, fall away. There was kind of an anti-bench press scene. All those classical bodybuilding movements disappeared, and it was this, no, it's not functional. It's not functional. Yeah. And I think you're seeing this pendulum swinging back, where you're seeing the merit in isolation movements. You're seeing the merit in bodybuilding and actually focusing sometimes on hypertrophy. And I think there's going to be this sweet spot in the middle where people will settle into. I think that's where Marcus Philly's sort of targeting his program is finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think the classic example is like the butterfly pull-up or the kipping pull-up, right? Like it's just, there's a reason for it. Like you're keeping your intensity high, maybe you're working more muscle groups. Like I think that was a push for CrossFit for a while. It was like as many muscle groups as possible, compound movements, like get the most bang for your buck out of it, right?
Yes.
But in doing that, like in doing butterfly pull-ups or keeping pull-ups, well, now you're neglecting that muscle group, like all those muscles that you can isolate and getting really good workout out of.
Yes.
Like, so it went too far, I think. Exactly what you're saying. The pendulum swung too far of like, we need to bring it back a bit and like focus on those specific muscle groups and target exactly what we need to target and strengthen that, right? Because you're getting people with shoulder injuries and this and that because it's like, oh, I haven't worked that. Like I haven't. When's the last time you've done like a shoulder press or an arnold press or like nice controlled rather than like just push press, right?
Yes.
It's the you're seeing a lot of programs and a lot of people, and I think like Marcus Philly is a great example, and there's a bunch of others like Paragon is one. Jen was showing me a bunch of others where these ex-CrossFit athletes are like coming out of that and being like, okay, what good can I take from CrossFit and what can I add in like the functional bodybuilding world and how can I marry those together in the most effective program possible? And you're seeing some cool stuff.
A lot of people run before they can walk, and when I see, at the CrossFit gym, it kind of circles back to ego in a lot of ways, but people see someone doing a kipping pull-up in a specific, targeted way that, they're in a workout, they have the capacity for it, they're choosing to do it, and that's what they want to do, even though they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so, it probably does circle back to having a gym that is conducive of, good coaches that can guide people in the right way. But I think the coaches have to understand that pendulum as well. They have to understand the merit in building a good base and a foundation, to get you there. What I will say is that I think when you look at fitness, kind of from a broad lens in terms of how fitness is conducive to lifespan and health span, I think one of the most, or if not the most important factor is what keeps you coming back to training.
Yeah.
And if it's bodybuilding, then that's the thif someone just loves it and that's what's going to keep them consistent across time, do that thing. Whatever that thing is for an individual, find what you enjoy and stick with it. Group fitness, I think for the broad population is something that holds people accountable to training. Because it's easy. You show up and you actually build relationships with people.
And you don't have to think, right? It's like, you're just doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Like the most effective program is the one that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, this program and this person's doing this. And it's like, well, are you going to follow that? Like, are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And like, I'm the prime example of like program hopping around. I find something I like. And it's like, I've been doing the RP strength stuff for a bit now, and it's like, I enjoy this.
That's the longest you've
I know. And it's like, I know. And like, I've done another one. There's a brute strength one that's very similar, and it was like more bodybuilding-ish, little bit of CrossFit, but like the strength stuff, and I enjoy that, right? And it's finding that balance, and I think you kind of also have to force yourself. Some people get stuck in their ways of just like constant like, oh, I'm doing 5x5, exact same exercise every single week, and like, it's good, and like if you're doing it, that's good, but you also get limited in growth. So I think you need to also experiment with like going outside and doing different stuff like rock walking or little biking or jogging or like doing different sets. And it was this, I saw this clip the other day, and it's like, I want to pick your brain on it, is you should never be doing the same exercise more than once in a week. So like if you're doing back squat 2-3 times in a week, like you're just missing opportunity for growth. Like if you do back squat and then a couple days later do front squat, we're still targeting like the quad, but you're hitting different muscle groups when you're doing that, right? So it's better bang for your buck rather than just hammering the same muscles over and over and over again, and your body just adapts to that, right? I don't know where you stand.
No, I fully agree. Like life does not throw unidirectional things at you. You look at, I just went on a hunt, right? And you're packing a deer out of the backcountry. Well, the terrain is variable. You're dealing with different grades of slope. You're dealing with stepping up onto things at varying heights. You're moving your body in different ways. You've got weight that is uneven. And so that's real life. If you train the same motion, the same stimulus, it's not going to prepare you for real life. And so I agree with that fully. When you shift your load, you might be doing lunges and back squat paired with, front squat during your week. All of those are going to create a well-rounded system. With that being said, I think you can also skew too far where you're too variable, right? And
Agreed.
When you look at that pendulum again, you look at the progressive overload system compared to kind of a complete variable system. And I see the argument for both, and I've seen people progress in both, right? I mean, I've seen run-of-the-mill people that are just, your average mom, dad, showing up to a CrossFit gym, putting up tremendous numbers from just showing up and doing their class WODs, not doing a progressive overload. I've also seen people follow a progressive overload where you might not be doing back squat 3 times a week, but you're doing back squat once a week, and every week you're making forward progress on those numbers. You're tracking what you did last week and you're adding to it the following week. I've seen people progress in both of those systems. But it probably circles back to, are you showing up? And then what is your intensity level when you're in the gym? And that's probably another factor that it does matter. Like you can show up to the gym and, go through the motions. That's better than not going to the gym. But will you make progress without that intensity piece?
Yeah. And it's funny because I have a friend, and my buddy tells me about him. I haven't seen him in a while, but he goes to the gym and he's just like playing games on his phone in between sets. And it's like, are you really focused on what you're doing? Like, are you bringing 100% of your effort into your exercise that you're doing, or are you just showing up to show up, right? Like, so you can show up, but you also got to put that work in, right? You got to give it some intensity.
I like the concept of not having your phone in the gym. It's a good concept. It's a distractor.
Oh, absolutely. Right? It's like whether you like put all your screen time limiters on so you can just look at your program and that's it. But like, I don't know about you, but I catch myself sometimes of like scrolling, and you're just like, what am I doing? Like,
you're in the gym. Why am I scrolling on Instagram?
Rest for a minute, and now I'm like, it's 5 minutes later. I'm watching Theo Vaughn videos and just like.
Have you ever had those workouts where like, I'm going to be in and out of the gym in like 40 minutes, and it is genuinely like a 40 minutes workout, 40 minutes of work, and it takes you 2 hours. And you almost hate yourself afterward. You're like, what did I just do? Why?
I wasted so much time, and it's just, I know, so frustrating. I'm on a social media fast right now for like, I've been on it for a couple days, and I have to do it every now and then because I catch myself like I'll be just on Instagram, just doom scrolling or TikTok or whatever, and just like scrolling through, families around, and just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I wasting my time with this right now?
Do you find when you do those fasts, does it reset you?
It does. Yeah. So it's like I find it connects me better, and like I'm going to try, because I want to set up videos for this and other stuff, of like just having it on a separate phone and just doing it like in the evening, like set a dedicated time. Like it's okay to be on social media and see what's going on. Like it's a way to connect with the world, see new stuff. Like I love the training. It's like we get fireground training, you get cool workout stuff, and you just get like entertainment, right? So I think if you can dedicate that specific time just to that, then it's fine. But to like constantly just be like, oh, I got a break here. I'm walking up the stairs. Like I need the dopamine hit. Like what's going on here? What's going on here? You just rely on it. And it just becomes so habitual that you're just like, oh, what's going on here? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And like, I find by deleting that, like off my phone, it does that whole reset. And like eventually I'll add it back on and I'll probably go through the same cycle again. Right. Yeah. But I don't want to. And I think by not having it on my main phone and having it on like say an iPad or an old phone upstairs, like at night you can say, oh, from 7 to 7:30, like it's free time, kids are in bed. Like before I watch TV with the wife, I'm just going to scroll a bit and then be done. Put it away and then it's done.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like breaking the cycle of needing to fill every spare second with your attention being captured.
Yeah.
You know, you might have a 20-second lull in what you're doing. And that urge to reach into your pocket to fill 20 seconds, like why? Like you don't need to. Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to open Instagram. You're going to get like 4 scrolls in. Yeah. Then whatever you're doing, you're going to go back to and you're going to close it and put it back in your pocket. That's insane. When you actually think about what did you accomplish? It's like that's crazy. You could have had an organic thought about anything in the world that would have been more valuable than what you just did.
Yeah. And I find too, I'm bad at like, ooh, look at these shoes. Like I love shoes. And I'd be like, oh, I need that. And it's like, I need this. And it's that whole marketing piece of like, now I got to go buy shit because I just scroll out here. Like, God.
Oh, yeah. The world is wanting you. It's blasting you.
Especially like it's Black Friday week. And I'm just like, don't buy this, don't buy that, and totally, it's tough, right?
Yeah. It's weird when you see the advertising ramp up going towards Black Friday. Like there's websites that I don't know how they got my email, and my inbox is like filled with 10 times the amount of emails I normally get from companies, and I'm going through and I'm like unsubscribe constantly, and they're just flooding in.
And it seems like even when you unsubscribe, these dicks are still saying, like, I swear, I was like, I've unsubscribed from this.
Yeah.
And it's like,
again, another one. Like, another one.
God.
Yeah, it's so brutal.
It sucks, man.
I'm curious if this is going to be, like, I don't even know where you find this data, but, like, I'm curious how successful of a Black Friday this year's going to be in compared to previous years. You know, like, we're sort of in, I wouldn't say the most prosperous times as you know for people. Yeah. And so I'm curious if the advertising is going to be effective enough to still get people's money, right? Or
and you're like, I think through COVID, like people were just like spending because they weren't going out and doing other stuff. So you had this big, so I think you had this big influx. Whereas last year, I think you probably took a hit, and then it's just. I don't know. Are people going to buy more because now they're saving up for Christmas or buying before Christmas? And it's going to be a lull. Like it's so. I don't know, man.
There's probably smart ways to do Black Friday. Like if you knew that in a year there's going to be there's going to be things I need to buy. Yeah. So you just make a list and you're like, these are all the things I'm going to buy, but I'm going to wait till Black Friday and I'll just buy them all on Black Friday. Yeah. I'll save for them during the year, but I'll get them all 50% off on Black Friday or whatever it is. Yeah. Like that's a smart way to do it. The impulse buying when you don't need something.
I know. I end up sending half the shit back. So that's why I love Amazon. All right, send it back. So you've been into hunting lately. You talking about rucking through the woods and doing that shit. Tell me how that's been. What's that been like? So you just started last year, right?
Last year, the first year. Yeah.
Has that just been like drinking through a fire hose?
Oh, 100%. Like it's if you didn't have a father that took you out hunting. Yeah. Really difficult to get into it. You need mentors. Luckily, we got a couple guys at the hall that are super into it, and they've been really awesome at taking me under their wing and just sharing their knowledge. And I borderline think it's a responsibility as a hunter to mentor future people that want to hunt. Yeah. There's such a barrier to entry to get into it. And if you've been doing it for 10 years, help someone out that wants to get in. If someone genuinely wants to learn and they want to get into it, you got to pay it forward. Someone did that for you. You got to do it for the next person, right? Yeah. It's kind of an ethos, I think, within the community that needs to stay. But it's been fun going into kind of year 2. I've not shot anything myself.
Okay, so you had an opportunity to shoot something. Take me through that.
Well, so we're out with our buddy there from the hall, and we get set up on our spot. And we're up on a hill. We're overlooking a clearing, and I'm on kind of one side, and he's on the other side. We're probably about 20 feet apart, kind of crouched in the trees there. And once in a while, I would kind of creep over to his side, and we'd have a bit of a conversation. And he told me, he said, "Bring your gun with you. Always have your rifle ready to go, because this could happen quick." Yeah, right. So I'm over there, and all of a sudden, we're chatting. Of course, my gun's back, it's 20 feet across, and we just hear this kind of thud behind us, and we hear a big sniff, and all of a sudden, 2 whitetails just blast in from behind us, and I'm like scrambling. I run over to my gun, my rifle, and I pick it up, and I raise it, and I'm like trying to find the trigger, and I realized I've still got my mitts on. I'm like, oh man, are you serious right now? So I'm like freaking out. I pull my mitt off, get the gun back up, and it's too late. He's already taken the shot. One's dropped, the other one got away, and I'm just looking like a clown. So yeah, and it was
important lessons.
It was a okay, I see what you mean. It can happen quick.
Yeah, because you were picturing like Bambi just like strolling through, like just eating some nice leaves, looking straight at you, like big buck hunter style. And
I pictured just edge of the woods. Oh, there he is. Just slowly, you have time. No, it was not like that at all. This whole process took place in like 6 seconds from the time we saw the deer to the time the shot happened to the time the other one was gone. So quick. So that was our first hunt. It was a good experience. Packing out that deer afterward. We were about 2 kilometers. We were down a cut line, and then we went down an ATV trail. We dropped the deer, and then what we did is we decided to drag the deer out to the forerunner, and way harder than I thought it was going to be.
So what'd you use to drag it out?
Paracord. Okay. So we basically we field dressed it. So you pull out the innards, all the guts, and everything.
Had you done that before, or was that?
That was my first time, and it was. I'm glad Matt was there. I'd watched a bunch of YouTube videos. It was weird. Like you're inside an animal that was just living. It's hot. Like the inside is really warm. You can feel the heat coming off of your hands are inside it. You can feel the heat. The muscles are twitching. The nerves are still twitching. It's odd. It's a very odd feeling. Even the first time you walk up to the animal after it's you just shot it, and the animal's beautiful. You feel the fur. It's thick. They're very impressive animals, and you do feel this sadness for the animal. But you're so just enthralled with the experience and the journey, right? You're sad that the animal's dead, but you know that you're going to eat meat anyways, right? I'm eating meat all the time, and you can be disconnected from that process, or you can understand that, hey, you know what, I am going to put the work in to eat this animal, and you're part of that journey. I think it's a more holistic way to consume life, right? Life consumes life, and this is kind of being part of that whole cascade of events that happens from the death of an animal to when it ends up on your plate. The effort that it took to get that out of there was part of that journey, right?
And I think like kind of leading to what you're saying is, if you have that empathy and like you have that gratitude towards that animal, like that's perfect, right? Like that's what you need. You're grateful for it, you're thankful, you're going to consume it like the best, most proper way that you can. Whereas if someone's just out there just shooting stuff just to shoot
trophy
stuff
hunting
and whatever, and just dragging it back and not taking the time and effort to do it properly, I think that's a disservice to it, and it's disrespectful to the animal in a way. Like I agree. I follow this YouTuber out there, Youngbloods, and they do spearfishing, and same thing. Even it's a fish, and they're just like so grateful for it, very selective with what they do. And I think you need to be grateful and empathetic to that animal and that creature, or else you shouldn't be hunting, and you shouldn't be like taking its life.
Agreed.
Right?
And the even the training that requires to be like, a good shot, whether it's with a spear, so you're practicing, whether it's if you're a bow hunter, your target training, rifle, same thing. That is part and parcel of being an ethical hunter, is knowing that when you shoot an animal, that the bullet's going where you want it to go. So it's a clean death. It's all part of it. It's all part of the journey of it. So yeah, I agree.
Nice. Yeah. You lost a kid while you were out there?
we did. It was awesome. It was a funny story. So, yeah. So basically, we're maybe 2.5 hours from Calgary.
Yeah.
And we stop at the last gas station. It's kind of outside Sundre area in there, and we use the washroom there, and then we drive about another 50 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And we're down a cut line, and this cut line, Matt's got a pretty nice SUV. It's got lifted up, and he's got good suspension, good ground clearance. So we're able to make it quite far down this cut line. We get to a part where we're kind of going on a riverbed there, and it's looking a little sketch. So I said, you know what? Hold up here. Let me get out. I'll make sure that you can continue to make it. He says, yeah, okay. And so he's like, I'm just gonna pee while you're doing that, and he gets out, he pees, and I go and I look at the riverbed, and I think, yeah, you know what? You can make this, Matt. Like, we're good here. So we get back in, and we take off, and we get, over the riverbed, up the other side, and we continue down this cut line. We're going for another, few hundred meters, and get to kind of the end point. We're like, I think this is as far as we can safely go without getting our SUV stuck. So we stop, and Matt's got his son with him, right?
Yeah.
So he gets out,
and he's a quiet little guy too. Right?
He's a quiet guy, right? Yeah. This guy, his son's pretty quiet. So he opens up the back of the 4Runner, and he goes, "Where's my son?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm in the back here. I was getting my gun set up, and he goes, "Did we leave him at the gas station?" This is an hour ago. And I'm like, did we? Like, did he get out? And we just didn't realize,
so
right?
Panicked.
The panic that went over his face. It was hilarious. So then all of a sudden we just hear from the darkness, right? We just hear, "Dad, you left me." And we turn around, and when we had got out to cross that riverbed, his son was like, "I gotta pee," and he got out and he peed, and we just took off. And so his son thought it was a joke. And we just kept driving, and luckily we couldn't go any further, because we would have probably made it another kilometer.
And then you probably would have driven back to Sundre and be like,
yeah, and that's what we talked about. Probably driven to the gas station, right? Like, totally. So his kiddo was a real trooper, and it was in good spirits. We found him. It was pretty awesome. We were crying, laughing when it happened. It's just, oh man.
Oh, that's amazing.
Good story. It was a good story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But so that was hunt number one. Get an animal out was very hard. Very when they say dead weight. Yeah. When you're dragging.
How much do you think it weighed?
I'd say the deer was probably about 80 to 100 pounds. In total. Maybe a little more. Maybe between 100 and 115 pounds, maybe. Yeah. It was a doe. Yeah. It wasn't too big, but incredible how much that felt when you're dragging it. Yeah, paracord, and you're just pulling it, but you just, kind of hauling it behind your pack. And I do think kind of if I was going to hike something that far, especially over variable terrain, I think the best way is to put it in your pack, quarter the animal, and put it in the pack as opposed to just dragging it. The next hunt we did a few days ago, we got a mule bull, but it was probably about 2 kilometers, maybe a little more, but it was on the top of a mountain, essentially on a hillside, with a lot more variable terrain. It wasn't like farmer fields sort of for Sundre. This was down by Head Smash and Buffalo Jump, and there's a lot of big, tall, rolling hills through forest. And again, we decided to drag this thing out. I think throw it in the pack is better, and that's where the rucking comes into play. And you were one of the first people that introduced me to rucking. Yeah. And you were hammering that for your cardio piece at the hall at the time. You'd throw a pack on your back and get on the treadmill, and put on the elevation.
And you just incline on and just go.
Get after it. Yeah.
Just a nice steady walk.
Very effective. It's a good way to train.
Fantastic.
It's a good return on your investment for time.
Yeah. It's not so hard on your knees as like running and all your other stuff. And it's good.
Where did you get into it? Where did you hear about it?
I just seen some of like the CrossFit guys, so like Dave Castro and I forget where I actually got the treadmill portion, because I know they were going outside and doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one of those kind of bodybuilding-ish things of like that's what they did for cardio, was normally just incline treadmill.
Yeah.
But when you throw the weight vest on, it just adds another little element of it and like that resistance, and it's more effective, right?
Yeah.
And there was Go Ruck, the company Go Ruck. I know they've started to push that a lot lately, and that's coming. Michael Chernow, do you know who that is?
I've heard the name.
So he owns Creatures of Habit. Or one of the founders.
He's the overnight oats.
Yeah. And so he's been hammering that a lot lately as well, I believe. Just weight vest stuff, and it's.
I'd like to experiment, like, at the hall we have our weight vest we throw on.
Just a 20 pound weight vest. Yeah.
I'd like to experiment with some heavier rucks where you do a ruck with 70 pounds, 80 pounds. That would be a fun method to throw in once in a while.
Yeah.
But you need to have a pack that can. Maybe I can use my hunting pack with a meat shelf, but. You can get packs that actually. I think Jocko has it. Jocko Lincoln. He has it's a plate loaded backpack.
Oh yeah. I see.
Those are pretty cool.
I've seen that as well. I think Josh Bridges has something similar, and like, I think Rogue makes one. I'm sure there's other ones as well, but you can throw 45 on the back of it and just start walking. You look like a weirdo.
Because you're walking down the street with a plate on your back. Totally.
Blue plate on your back. But it's like, all right, who cares? Or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So, I'd be.
you gotta shed the looking like a weirdo thing. Just send it, right?
It's like, who cares? It's like, have you ever seen? I've seen it before, and I think I've done it. Like pushing a sled down the street. It's just like, what do the cars think? Like, what is that guy doing?
Yeah, what a weirdo. I first moved to my house in Citadel here in Calgary, and I have a 150-pound D-ball, and I had a buddy that was he flew over from Ontario, and we were like, we're getting a workout in the morning, and we said, well, why don't we just take this 150-pound sandbag and let's just walk it around our whole loop, like it's like an 800-meter kind of loop that we're in a big circle. And we said, let's go. So we just I'd carry it as far as I could. I'd drop it. He'd pick it up and he'd carry it. And the looks that we were getting from people in my neighborhood, like we were psychos. Just absolute lunatics.
These don't understand.
Yeah.
Don't understand the gains.
Yeah, totally. Normalized fitness. Yeah,
exactly. Are you doing BJJ anymore?
It's been a while. It's been when I was training for that Wadapalooza was when I took a hiatus from BJJ just to focus. It was too much. I was literally burning the candle at both ends training for Wadapalooza, and that was just the qual. I didn't make it to Wadapalooza. Training for it, right? Just to make that very clear. But that with jiu-jitsu was too much. So I put jiu-jitsu on hold, and I haven't been back. It's something that I know I will return to someday. And again, it's a tough thing to take a break from. Yeah. And it's better just to not take a break. You should just not.
Well, I've been experienced. So I started a couple months ago, and I experienced it. Like family was sick 2 weeks ago. So I took a week off because I'm like, I'm not getting everybody at the whole gym sick. Like, I'm just not.
Totally.
And then, like, I also tweaked my elbow. So I was like, I'll give my elbow rest. And then, like, 1 week turns into 2 weeks, turns into, like, it's like, it was like 2.5 weeks. And I'd take my daughter for her class there because she started going as well. And the instructor's like, or the professor's like, where you been? I'm like, well, I'm just, you like throwing these excuses around and stuff. And it's just like, just come. Just, even if you're not feeling 100%, just come. And I think that's, like, being the biggest like mentality shift of it all is like it's okay to go and not give 100% as long as you're retaining information and you're learning and you're like you're taking something in, right? And that's been the toughest shift is like putting the ego on hold and like I don't need to just go there and like dominate, like try to dominate and get dominated, right? Like it's cool just to go and just roll and like figure shit out. Right?
When you see the different belts, all that is the people just kept showing up.
Yeah.
It's not like they walked in and were these super talented people. Like they just were ordinary people that kept showing up.
Yeah. And that was like, that's what I've learned is like, cause I'm just white belt, nothing, like no stripes or anything. And like, it's like, well, I can take on a blue belt. Like I've submitted a blue belt. They've submitted me, like, and it's even a purple, like, and it's like, well, it's not necessarily like I don't know, like you're better, like, sure, you submitted them, but they know more. They have the bigger knowledge base, and I think that's what it is. Like the belts represent almost. If I'm wrong, is like it's that knowledge base and what you know and how you can like.
The belt doesn't make you invincible.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you got a blue belt or whatever. You got a few stripes in your belt. You're just a human being.
Yeah,
but you've been there longer. You've played the game longer.
Yeah,
you have more options. More doors are open to you in any position that you're in. When you're a white belt, you're in a tunnel. There's no doors open. This is you don't even know where you're going down a tunnel with a blindfold on. So there's nothing available
hitting
to
the
you.
wall.
You're just bouncing through that tunnel. Then you get one stripe, and all of a sudden now your blindfold comes off, but you're still in the tunnel.
Yeah,
and then slowly you get out of the tunnel, and there's a whole bunch of roadways and exits and things you can navigate for. And the longer you go, the higher the belts, the more pathways are available to you at any given time.
Well, and it was like, so the last one I was there, I think it's everybody probably does this. It's like, okay, where do I go from here? Like I'm on side mount or whatever. Like what's my next step? Like how do I submit? And it's just like, they just always chuckle and smile. And the professor's like, I did the same thing. Everybody will always do the same thing coming in, but like, that's not what it's about. It's position over submission, right? So it's about like, and it's again, that learning piece of like, okay, put yourself in the right position and like focus on the technique and focus on like managing that side control and that side mount and like just like staying there and getting in the right spot and not giving up an arm or giving whatever. And like, that's the important part. And that's been the shift of like, I get stuck there and I'm like, okay, what next?
Yeah.
Where am I going? Right. And
he sees the long game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry. Like focus on just that position.
Yeah.
And you're like, but
I want more.
I want more. What do I do from here?
So eventually, like we learned like the Americana and like the I think straight arm and like Kimura, and it's like okay, those are great tools, but like the step before is the most important of managing that control because as soon as you go for that arm, if you have shitty control, like they're just gonna roll you or you just like something's gonna happen, and it's been like the light bulb. It's like well, shit, hey, yeah.
How have you found taking up something new again, right? Like something brand new, something that you know nothing about. You didn't know anything about.
No, because I've never done any combat sport, anything at all. So that was like I've always wanted to, and it's been fun. Like I'm an athletic person, like a competitive person by nature, and like through the years, I think that competitiveness has gone down, and it's just like whether it's getting old or just not wanting to like be in that mindset, right? Whether it's growing up and like the kids and whatever, and that's not the priority anymore. But it's fun being able to go in and compete. Yeah. Like that competition aspect of you and another person, like it's fun. Right? Like it's
hard to take the competitive nature out of people that were competitive.
And you get caught up in it and you have to like, because I'll just be like breathing heavy. It's so funny because I'll go with the owner of the gym. Her name's his sister owns like a different portion of it, but she has jiu-jitsu as well, and so she'll be in there and she's like, breathe, and it's like just like calming down and not just like getting so tense and so tight. It's like I'm bear hugging them. It's like, well, that's fantastic. You're pushing their weight into yourself and making it harder for yourself to breathe. And it's like
it's funny, so like when you've been training jiu-jitsu long enough, the scariest people to roll with are actually brand new people to the gym because they're terrified. Yeah. And they don't know what they're doing. They're not using technique. They're spazzing.
Just so frantic.
You're almost like when I'm rolling with someone brand new, I'm in like, I'm going to self preserve my joints here. I'm not going to let myself be vulnerable to something that
you
can
not
just
give
snap
an arm
my
or something, or like
I'm staying very in control. And, it's protecting yourself. And then there's some people that will just straight up refuse to roll with people that they don't trust. Yeah. And I get that. I fully do. This is a sport in which you're dealing with joint manipulation. Yeah. And all it takes is one spaz and sometimes accidents happen. But you're dealing with snapped arms. You're dealing with shoulders and blown knees. You're dealing with things that if you were to mess it up, it would affect your job. You'd have to take time off work. You'd have to get surgery. You have to go through rehab. I mean, major joint injuries it's a setback in life that is it's frustrating when it happens for people because it takes time. It's not like, the be all end all. You can get over a joint injury and still get back to peak performance, but it's time. It's going to suck for that period of time when you're going through it.
Yeah, and it's like, and you see that, and that's, I think, the part I'm leery of and still leery of, because I've tweaked stuff and whatever else, and like my body's pretty beat up from years of volleyball. Like my joints are just hammered, and like my wife's like, "Why are you doing this?" Like, and it's like, well, it's something new. It's a challenge, and I enjoy it, right? And it's a tough battle to kind of go through that of like, how far am I willing to push my body, and like, what am I going to do? And I think I've come to the point where I'm going to start going in with a more relaxed attitude and like not pushing as hard. And they've even said like, oh, you can sit out the end rolling. Like, and that's the toughest part. I'll come home and my forearms will just be exploded from just like gripping and grabbing and rolling at the end. And I think it's just like being okay with being submitted, and like you learn more from just like rolling and kind of like, if I give 80% and I get submitted and I get some submissions in or whatever, and like get that, rather than being like 100% effort and a constant like locked in shitty position. Like, what are we learning in that? Like what am I learning other than just like blowing up my body? And
but
so
that's the longevity attitude. Yeah. And that's that longevity piece that we talked about earlier, is like you could go, flat out balls to the wall and then stop after 2 months, or you could come in with that more relaxed attitude to learn, to drop the ego, to keep yourself safe. And then all of a sudden you've continued to show up for an entire year. Then, oh wow, look, there's my blue belt, right? Yeah. Right. Or I get injured after 2 months and I don't come back and I never get my blue belt.
Yeah, I know.
So you're battling. Jiu-jitsu is so fun. Yeah. And like when you're wrestling with someone else, it is fun. And especially because there's a bunch of guys in the hall that you're all training with. When you're wrestling with those guys, it's a good time. It's so fun. It's
like even being able to flip somebody is like the funnest feeling. Like they're on top and like they give up a little too much body position. You're just like, yeah, here we go. There's like, no. And it's like, it's so fun. And
it was so funny hearing Matt talk about you just squishing him for an hour. He's heavy.
For reference, like I probably have like 60, 70 pounds on him at least. Oh yeah. So it's just being able like, and that's been like the learning like the body weight and just using that, and it's just it's funny just hearing the little like when you're pressing on stuff and just like you're not like pressing the brakes on it, but you're pushing the air out, and it's just like it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's been
So you're contrasting how fun that is with the fact that if you keep doing this, injuries are going to happen. It's inevitable. It's built into the sport. Yeah. But it's so fun. But you're going to get injured. And so your mind constantly goes back and forth, and the people that stick with it, they get to the point where they know that injuries are just a part of it, and they're okay with it. They love it so much that they're like, yeah, you know what, the injuries I'm going to deal with is worth it. Mm-hmm. What I'm gaining on this side through the physical attributes and the mental attributes of having discipline, of showing up, of the self-confidence of knowing that you can protect yourself in situations, being calm in conflict. When you're in a situation where things are getting heated, when you're out, you never have to stress that you can't defend yourself. And that peace of mind that is gained through that, I think those people that stacks higher than the risk of injury in terms of their weighing it out, right?
Yeah. And I think a big reason why I push myself to do it and keep going is partially because like I pushed my daughter into it, and she loves it. Like she really enjoys it, and she's only been doing it for like 3-4 months, and like I'm really proud of her for that. Her nature is not that to like be aggressive and so I've even had to like take down. I'm like, okay, you got to practice on me because it looks like you're going in and just like giving a gentle hug to somebody, and that's fine. It's like, but you got to like get your weight in, get some intensity, and it's like that's taught, right? And it's like, I think for me to be able to help her and teach her and like be able to have input on it, I have to know what I'm talking about as well. Like I can't just force her to do jujitsu and me not do it. Like I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to know what I'm talking about and help her through it, so that if I see stuff, it's like, oh, like should have done this here or this here. Try doing this, and like I don't want to ever be the coach and like the main like source, but I want to be able to there support and help, right? And I think that's important, right?
Yeah. There's I love seeing families that train jiu-jitsu together. It's super cool. And there's a few families at my gym that it's like the kids will go in the kids class or the teens class, and then eventually they get old enough they can go in the adult class, and all of a sudden you get, sons training with dads and moms, and it's sometimes you get the entire family all on the mats, like mom, dad, kids, all in the same class. It's so cool. It is cool. And then they travel, and just kind of like CrossFit gyms, there's jiu-jitsu gyms everywhere. So you travel to Hawaii or wherever, and there's CrossFit gyms. You can pop in. You can get a class in. You're getting exercise on vacation with new instructors and new people, and they're welcoming you in. Where are you from? I'm from Calgary. Got so-and-so dropping in from Calgary. It's really cool. That aspect of it is awesome.
That family aspect of like, come in. Like it's the community, right?
Yeah. But I do love what you're saying about being that role model for your daughter, because I think for kids, martial arts is invaluable. I was thrown in martial arts when I was 5, and the self-confidence that your kids will learn from martial arts, I think is pretty tremendous.
And even seeing her in the short time she's been in there, you see that little bit of resilience creep up. Like she went to one gym and we ended up switching to another one just because smaller class sizes and whatever. There was still great professors at both, but like the professor at the first one was great because stuff would happen where like, oh, my shoulder, I bumped my knee, or like my ankle or whatever. And at first she would run to me, and the professor was like, no, come to me. And so I'd send her over there, and he'd talk it through with her and be like, are you okay? Like, what hurts? Like, just like working through that. And you end up seeing that resilience after a while of like, they're not running over as much, and they're okay, and they want to fight a little more, and like they're just growth, right? It's like growth, and it's really cool to see. And like, I think you see that a little bit in other sports, but more so in this because it's such a, I don't know, it's like a close contact, and it's such a physical thing, right? I don't know if you experienced that as well.
Definitely. Like when I've worked with kids over the years in martial arts, as an instructor, you're seeing children go through these mental hurdles, and it's when you get to see a kid gain the confidence from overcoming that hurdle, it's cool because you see them come back the next time that hurdle comes, and they're handling it better. And you don't realize that if you just send your kids out into life without challenges, right, they might grow up, and then all of a sudden they're a teenager when they face adversity, and that's the first time they face that adversity, and they don't have the tools in the toolbox to handle that. So when you talk about your daughter learning to, not just run to you, and the instructor's there and giving her the tools to work through it, take a breath, how are you feeling, all these things, that's part of that journey for her. And she's going to look back on it when she's a teenager and have all these skills, and she may not realize that she's been adding those tools since she was a young kid, and now all of a sudden she's here equipped with them. Yeah.
And I think like for our job as firefighters, we have these big toolboxes of like, in this situation, I'm going to do this or this, because I've experienced these little things, right? Like we've been doing it for a while now, and you see like, okay, this situation, control this exposure, pull this out, whatever it is, right? And like, that's life though. Like that's you're pulling those pieces for life as well. And exactly what you're saying of like, now she can hopefully do that. And like, you hear stuff for at school of like, oh, this person did this or this, do this. And like, you talk it through, and it's like, well, could you have done this? or do you work through this? And it's like giving them those tools and the little things. And
yeah, absolutely. It's managing the mind.
Yeah.
Right. You're managing emotions, right? You're winning, you're losing. Sometimes you're managing pain. You're physically hurt, right? And you're having, like, a young kid is having the sensation of pain in their body, and they're having to learn that it's just a feeling and observe the feeling. What does it feel like? Is it dissipating, right? Breathe through it.
Yeah.
And then you have fear, right? I remember, even myself, when I was training martial arts, we used to, the instructors used to make us jump over bamboo, and we'd have to dive over it and land and do a somersault, a shoulder roll over a bamboo. And you'd have the instructor that would put the bamboo at a height that made you uncomfortable, and you didn't want to jump over it, and they'd hold it there and they'd say, do it, right? And you didn't know that they were going to lower it a little bit if you weren't going to make it, but you'd have to mentally work yourself through the process of being scared and committing to doing it. Yeah. And that process is, again, it's another aspect to that. All these things are just, like you said, more tools. It's awesome. I can't say enough good things about it. I think that you're doing the right thing by having Margot in martial arts. She's doing well.
We've done, it's been an hour.
That flies by, man. That's crazy. That's actually nuts.
Yeah. It's been good. Hope you enjoyed.